Hey there everybody, welcome to the third part of my three-part series about clamshell gloves that are not the SPES Heavies. Today we're finishing up with my absolute favorites, the HF Armory Black Knights. So I picked up these gloves when my SPES Heavies were completely worn through, the fingertips completely were exposed when I was holding a sword, all the plates were dilapidated and falling apart. And I heard about these ones a little bit and I decided to pick them up because there wasn't too much information about them out there, and I thought, hey, why don't I give it a whirl? And honestly, I am quite glad I did, because these I think are phenomenal, and on top of that, the price just kind of seals the whole deal. So I'm going to dig a little bit into the materials with this. I'm going to go into the handling a little bit, and yeah, well, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. Pretty much hard plastic protection just about everywhere. Really, the only places that are going to be open on you is kind of like the inside of the cuff here, but you should be having some kind of forearm protection anyway. I've never been hit directly there. Otherwise, the wrist is nice and protected. The thumb is an absolute tank. This thumb is not getting hurt. I've had people smoke the crap out of these, and it's completely fine. We're gonna go a little bit into one of my favorite parts here, and that's how far this plastic shell right here extends over the fingertips. So although the fabric in here is starting to distend a little bit, my fingers will never be exposed like they do in my worn out SPES Heavies or in the Superior Fencing glove, because of just how far forward this goes. It's not going to be an issue, which for that I think is actually quite a big deal, because duct tape will fix a lot, especially in the SPES Heavies, but that fabric distension is one of the biggest points when it's time to get some new pair of gloves, and with these it's never going to be an issue. So that's a huge plus for me. The actual protection of these are excellent. I don't really feel hand hits too well. They're doing their job excellently. And I've had nothing break on these so far. I've been abusing these for quite a few months now. Nothing's out of place. Nothing's quite getting broken. I really have not too much issues with any of the materials. The one thing that I thought I would be initially a little concerned about was how exposed these little knots are here that are holding some of the plates in place, and maybe a good whack there will cause these to break, but hasn't happened yet, hasn't been an issue. The one little modification I did pretty much right away is I opened up the straps here, or not the straps, the elastics right here. I just untied it just to be able to let this flex a little bit, because the tightness of the wrist is actually pretty substantial. You do have to fight pretty hard to get your hand in there, but once it's in there, this isn't falling off. It's a little twofold, once you get all your jacket, your mask and stuff, and you're wrangling to try to get your gloves in, it can be a little frustrating. But overall, the security of being able to keep them on the hand is a worthwhile trade. But I still loosened this up a little bit just to help get the hands in there before, because when it was tight and solid, it was a struggle. But so far, really, that's the only modification I made to these gloves myself. Otherwise, I have not felt the need to. And yeah, so far they're holding up tremendously well. So how do these handle? You will see that, it's nice and relaxed and loose. I didn't have to break these in, or the finger parts anyway, at all. They just very conveniently, open and close. Absolutely no problem there. There's kind of an interesting little band that kind of goes over right where your fingertips are. And it kind of gives them something to secure into a little bit, so that's nice and comfortable. Unlike the Gvetens, this won't necessarily allow, the glove itself allows like that first digit articulation of the fingers. However, the fabric itself will stretch a little bit and kind of allows me to really grab the handle of my swords. So that doesn't really have an issue. I have full engagement of my fingers. And once again, that plate extension will keep the stretching of the fabric to grab the swords. It keeps it nice and safe. So that's not really a concern on my part. The thumb dexterity definitely needs to be broken into a little bit. At first it was a little stiff, but now I have absolutely no issue moving my thumb anywhere. And I think that's a pretty big deal, especially because, as I previously mentioned, that this is probably the tankiest thumb on clamshells I've ever seen. These are monsters. They're protected at all angles. I've had people hit me straight on top, off to the sides. Nothing has ever hurt. And because of how mobile these are, you get best of both worlds pretty much at this point. It's a little shocking how mobile these thumbs are. Lastly, the thing that I love the most about these is just how small they are compared to the SPES as well. So they don't, I'm not wearing balloons on my hands. These are still a little bulkier. They're a little bulkier than the Gvetten Zyphosuras. They are not as bulky as the SPES or the superior fencing ones. And oh man, does that make a world of difference? Just being able to go to crossed arm positions and long swords to get my zerks, my crumbs, my shields, or even just going to the cross sides for some straight parries. As soon as I started wearing these versus my SPES, I felt the difference in just how the maneuverability increased significantly, just because I wasn't getting these planets bound up on my hands on my fader. It was wild just how much of a difference it made, and I fell in love with them immediately. And then as I was breaking the thumb in, I think these are incredible gloves. They are cheaper than the SPES by a significant margin. They are more protective. The durability, especially in regards to the fabric here, is significantly higher. I haven't been wearing these as long as my SPES, so I can't quite give a full review for the absolute long term. However, due to the riveted design, so far nothing is even close to coming loose, so I have no real concerns about that for the moment. I think these are just a winner. At this point, for any of our people, when they ask, hey, what gloves should I get? I always point to these immediately. They are shipping out of the Ukraine right now, which is a little scary, but we've had a couple people order them during, and they've had them ship, no issues. The shipping took quite a while, but that's, to be expected during these times. Really, I have only one minor complaint, and that is when I open my hand here, the SPES and the other ones will have a little bit of an elastic at this part of the fabric to the top of the glove. I'm just lining that up here so you can see. So when I open that up, my hand is a little exposed here. Am I too worried about that? Honestly, not really. I think most shots you're going to take anyway are going to be right to the shell. I've never had that be an issue. If it does hit you, this is quite a bit of a padded protecting glove underneath the actual plastic hard shell. I don't think it's really going to be much of an issue, but I would suppose that is something to keep an eye out for overall with these, and that's my only complaint about them. Otherwise, I think these are just objectively big winners. I love these gloves. The only reason I wouldn't be wearing them is I got some pro gauntlets, and Thank you very much for watching my 3-piece review about clamshell gloves that aren't SPES. Definitely my number one recommendation is the HF Armory ones. So much so that I don't really feel like you should look for other gloves at this point. For the price point, the level of protection, and the maneuverability I have in these gloves, I think they are quite stellar. I don't see a reason to go anywhere else. Even if you're looking for SPES, these are superior in just about every way. So I would highly recommend them.